Before sunrise and dustfall, men hammer a new headgate, stealing the creek dry. Pale lanterns glide the empty bed, pausing at a broken survey cairn. Hart, a quiet cowhand with a steady hand and an old pocket watch, reins in. He owes May Ellison, the widow with a faded ledger of shares. The ditch boss smiles with papers and hired hats. Law says rotate. Fear says hush. When the lanterns flare by the cottonwood stump, what truth are they pointing at? Dawn came thin and gray over Dustfall Gulch, the kind of light that made fences look like ribs and the creek look like a scar. Hart rode the north fence at an easy trot, breath of his mare lifting in pale puffs. Below him, the dry bed of Dustfall Creek wound through cottonwoods and scrub, a memory of water more than water itself. Hammer blows drifted up from the bend, men's voices, the rattle of chain. Cal drew rein on the ridge and eased his mare down toward the channel. He kept his hands open on the reins, palms outward, peaceful as Sunday. He had learned long ago that a quiet arrival sees more than a loud one. 5 men worked at a new headgate made of fresh oak. Boards, iron pins, a frame braced into the bank. Ephraim Pike stood with his hat tipped just so, a rolled paper in his hand like a preacher's sermon. 2 hired hands held shovels at parade rest. Another knelt with a mallet, tapping a pins in slow, sure strokes. The last man watched the ridge, eyes bright beneath his brim. Pike turned his smile up to Cal. "Morning, Hart." "Company maintenance. Nothing to rile a man of peace." "I like peace," Cal said. His voice was easy. "What you got there?" "Emergency diversion order." Pike wagged the paper. "Signed by our board. Until this godforsaken drought breaks, we're shepherding every drop toward the main ditch. Efficiency. Equity." Cal slid his boot from the stirrup and swung down. He kept his coat closed. No metal flashed. No trouble invited. "Town signed off?" "Town delegated," Pike said. "In the interest of order." Cal didn't answer. Wind pushed a hiss through the cottonwoods. At his feet a strip of shadow lay where water should have been. He listened for the old trickle, the gravel talk that once seeped into hot afternoons. Nothing. The old cottonwood stump sat a dozen yards upstream, a gray knuckle of age. Beside it the remains of a survey cairn sagged, stones kicked and scattered by hooves and time. Cal looked there because that stump had anchored stories. Men said first stakes were driven at its flank, the year the railroad surveyors camped by the ridge, before the spur shifted dreams east. Something pale moved over the dry stones, a glow like breath on glass. Cal blinked hard. 2 faint lantern lights, low as a man's knee, drifted the creek bed, easing along the old course. They paused at the broken cairn, not the bob of a handheld lamp, not the flare of a match. The light had its own mind. No one else seemed to notice. Pike said, "We're on schedule, fellas. Pin it." Iron struck iron, neat and sure. The sound pecked at Cal's molars. His pocket watch, a gift from a traveling judge who liked a steady cow hand, ticked soft against his vest. He felt it more than heard it. The rhythm faltered for the space of 2 heartbeats, then steadied. He set his palm flat to the watch, thumb on the lid. It was cool through the wool. Hoofbeats scuffed behind him. May Ellison rode in from the ranch trail, duster buttoned high, hat tied under her chin. She carried a tin of coffee in her saddlebag and a ledger under her arm, the leather cover grayed by years. She swung down without waiting for a hand. "Morning, Mr. Pike," she said. Her voice was civil but not warm. "You don't get to pour timber in our creek without a town meeting." Pike lifted his brim. "Mrs. Ellison, the company sympathizes with your loss. We're doing what's necessary." May's fingers tightened on the ledger. "My husband didn't spend 10 winters mending ditch shoulders so a board could declare the creek a private trough. We rotate. Always. Have." Cal took the coffee, poured a lid full, and handed it to her like a small ritual. She nodded thanks, eyes never leaving Pike. Cal could see the column lines stamped forever into the ledger's paper. Names, shares, rotation days. The book was the town's memory, and the town had a way of forgetting when fear leaned on it. "Deputy Crenshaw will look this over," May said. Pike smiled with his eyes closed, the way men do when they want you to feel small. "He'll commend our initiative. Take a ride to the mouth of the creek, Mrs. Ellison. You'll see the trickle we're catching. It's science to direct flow where it serves the many." Cal looked past Pike. The 2 pale lights had drifted downstream, like minnows that forgot how to swim. They turned, as if tugged, and floated back toward the stump. When the mallet tapped the last pin home, both lights pulsed brighter, then slid upstream together, slow and sure, and stopped above the wrecked cairn. May followed Cal's gaze. "You see it?" He nodded. "Once." "Seen stranger out here," he said quietly, "but not often." Pike glanced back, saw nothing but dust and dawn. "We're finished," he said. "Any complaints can be docketed with the company clerk." He snapped his paper straight and walked away, men shouldering tools, pins snug in oak. The bed below the gate looked darker, like a bruise. May exhaled hard, as if holding breath since winter. "He'll nail this town to his notice board if no one stands up," she said. "I brought the ledger. Rusk told me once about a deed addendum tucked at the church. We'll find it." Cal tipped his chin toward the stump. The lights hovered, steady as prayer candles. "Maybe the creek kept its own minutes," he said. Down the gulch a hawk called, thin and hungry. Dust lifted in a slow sheet. Cal slipped the watch from his vest and weighed it in his palm. The ticking felt true again. He closed it and slid it back. "Let's go see Rusk," May said, "and bring a shovel." Cal swung into the saddle. He took one last look at the hovering lights and the broken stones beneath them. The pale lanterns held fast, bright as a promise waiting to be read, then dimmed to a breath as the sun climbed. By sundown, would those lights return? And if they did, what would they demand he risk to follow them? By noon, the wind flipped white notices against every porch in Dustfall Gulch. Cal read the one nailed to Morrison's store beside the horseshoe rack. Emergency diversion, company right, temporary. Equity by board decree. It was signed neat as a teaching slate, Ephraim Pike, superintendent. Someone had dabbed a smear of grease where a county stamp might have gone. Deputy Lyle Crenshaw stood nearby, hat low, tapping the butt of his baton against his boot. "It's not a warrant," he said, voice careful. "It's guidance. Guidance to turn folks' wells into wishin' holes," May said. She held the Ellison ledger close, arms tight like winter. "You seen the creek? It's gone to bone." Lyle's jaw moved once, a muscle ticking along his cheek. "Keep tempers down. I'll call a town meeting at the feed warehouse tonight. 6 sharp, civil talk, no shouting." Cal nodded. "We'll bring papers, not fists." Across the street, Pike stepped from the barber, smooth as hotel brass, and folded another copy of the notice into a breast pocket. He spotted them, raised 2 fingers, and strolled over with that Sunday smile. "Mrs. Ellison, Deputy Hart." He shook the page like a fan. "Takes a spine to steer in a drought. Most men go soft when folks scowl. Most men don't steal water and rename it Mercy," May said, even. "Steal? Now, that's impolite," Pike said. "We're saving heads of cattle from dying in far-flung draws." Efficiency. The company runs a broader ledger than personal grief. Cal's pocket watch ticked beneath his vest, a heartbeat a shade too quick. He set his palm over it, steadying the feel. "Who stamped your emergency?" Pike's smile stayed. "Delegated authority. The board authorized me this morning." "No county fee stamp," Cal said. "Clerk's out with fever," Pike replied. "You'd deny a town water because a stamp pad ran dry?" Lyle stepped between them with a sort of weary care. "Meeting, 6 o'clock. Bring charters, bring patience." Pike tipped his hat and drifted away, leaving a perfume of bay rum and fresh sawdust. That afternoon, Cal rode with May to her homestead south of the bend. The windmill spun lazy, clacking, rope singing in the well shaft. May dropped the bucket and drew up a half pail of clay-clouded water. She set it down and watched silt settle like tired snow. A child's rope swing moved on a cottonwood limb with no child, just the wind. "He'll squeeze the weak and leave us thirst," she said. "Cattle, garden, everything." Cal tested the pump handle. It coughed, hissed, and went slack. "We'll make the warehouse by 6. Rusk will meet us there." He said to bring the ledger and what we remember. May hesitated, then glanced toward the bunkhouse where 2 hands were patching tack. "Heard talk this morning," she said, voice lower. "A drifter at Thompson's Corral claimed he had been paid to teach manners last spring. Only folks didn't learn." He used Pike's name careless, like he said it often. Cal took that in. A man didn't reach for trouble on hearsay, but he didn't ignore it either. "Names can be borrowed," he said. "Deeds still sign themselves." May set her jaw. "I won't have you brawl for my water, Cal." "I don't aim to," he said. He meant it. He'd carried a scar in his conscience since a saloon brawl 5 years back, where a bottle ended a smile forever. An apology had never raised a man. Law might. Proof could. They reached the church early, climbed to the attic, and searched the hymn crates for the envelope Rusk had mentioned. Dust swam in the slanted light. A bell rope ticked faint against wood. Sound like a tired heartbeat. Rusk finally limped in, cane tapping a steady 3 count. "Saw your notice," he said. "Saw your faces, too. Means you noticed what the creek was." "Sayin'." "We saw lights," May whispered. Rusk didn't flinch. "Old folks called 'em watchers. They bless nothing. They only point. Same as stakes. If you read true, they shine. If you lie, they dim. That's the story anyhow." "Help us sort the papers," Cal said. They opened boxes, mouse-chewed minutes, baptism lists, a rolled map, no sealed envelope. Rusk frowned deep, then peered toward the eaves. "Try the rafters." Cal climbed carefully, fingers finding cool nails, and reached into a gap. Paper rasped under his knuckles. He drew out a slim packet bound with twine, church wax seal pressed with a cross, and the year, 1871. May exhaled like prayer. "Don't break it here," Rusk said. "Break it under eyes that count." Evening slid blue along the windows when they stepped back into the street. Ahead, the feed warehouse glowed with lamplight, voices rolling like a low storm. Cal checked his watch. The tick stuttered and then steadied as he shut the lid. "Civil talk," Lyle had said. Civil had a way of breaking when Thirst walked in. They crossed toward the doors. Somewhere behind the buildings, beyond the dust and the hush, a thin pale light moved along the empty creek bed, drawing a line no one else dared draw. The feed warehouse swelled with voices and lantern glow, dust hanging in the beams like sleepy moths. Cal slipped through the doorway with May and Surveyor Rusk, the sealed packet held flat in his palm. Deputy Lyle Crenshaw stood on a sugar barrel, hat pushed back, baton tucked under his arm, as if he hoped he'd never have to raise it. "Order," Lyle called, not loud, just steady. "We'll hear folks one at a time." No jeers, no fists. "Mrs. Ellison, Mr. Hart, what have you brought?" May lifted her chin, though Cal saw a tremor in the fingers that held the ledger. "A church-sealed envelope from 1871, she said. "Rusk can vouch the seal." "We ask you to open it, Deputy." Lyle stepped down, took the packet like a man catching a newborn. The red wax showed a shallow cross and the date. He glanced to Rusk. The old surveyor ran a thumb along the edge, nodded. "Church seal. Old pastor's hand. We put minutes and addenda there when tempers ran high, so nobody could claim edits." A ripple of humor and pain ran through the room at that. Dustfall had always been 2 parts hope, 1 part argument. "Open it," May said. "Under eyes that count." Lyle cracked the wax. The twine fell away. Inside lay a single page, paper gone fragile with time. He cleared his throat. "Addendum to water rotation, Dustfall Creek, spring of 71, he read. "In seasons of diminished flow, households holding original shares shall rotate by day, beginning Monday with Ellison Spring Draw, then Grant, then Merton, then Town Stock Trough, then—" He read the list, names old and present. At the bottom, witnessed this day by Rusk O. Branham, County Surveyor, Reverend Alton Pierce, and Deputy Amos Corley. Rusk tapped the page with a crooked nail. "My first year in office, we lined the shares to the creek's native course, using cottonwood stump as a fix. Folks signed knowing scarcity would come. A string-tied roll of maps thumped onto a grain sack. Revisions supersede," said a man in a crisp coat, Pike's lawyer, round spectacles gleaming. He unrolled a smooth, newer chart. "The company's charter of 79 grants discretion in emergencies. Efficiency permits rerouting along a straighter ditch to reduce seepage. See? Less surface distance, less loss." Pike stood behind him, arms folded, jaw relaxed, as if the outcome were already laundered and hung to dry. May's mouth tightened. "Rotation isn't a suggestion. It's our promise to each other." Cal felt the watch ticking fast again, as if trying to outrun the room. He pressed it through the vest, breathing slow. "Deputy," he said, "let us read the addendum by the creek where the first stakes are, and see if truth draws light. Light? Snorted the lawyer. Murmurs ran, some scoffing, some uneasy. Rusk's cane clicked twice, a gavel's cousin. Some of you seen? What we seen, Rusk said. Call 'em watchers. Call 'em swamp gas that forgot its swamp. They don't harm. They mark. When a man lies, they fade. When a man reads truth, they brighten. I can't say why, but I've measured truth less tidy than light. Lyle looked from the lawyer to Pike to May's steady gaze. He weighed the room and his badge and the 7 dry days ahead. Then he nodded. We'll step outside. No rushing the ditch, no touching tools. Read, then return. They spilled into the near dark, air cooling, sky the color of blued steel. The warehouse lamplight bled through the plank seams onto the dirt like thin ribbons. Rusk led with his careful limp. May kept the ledger clutched close. Cal carried the addendum like a small, sleeping thing. At the bank, the new headgate squatted, oak fresh, iron pins black in the last light. Downstream, the creek bed lay pale and empty. The cottonwood stump rose like an old knuckle remembering work. And there, low and faint at first, 2 pale, lantern lights moved along the stones, unhurried, as if they'd been there all along waiting for the right word. Lyle cleared his throat and held the paper, voice steady. Addendum to water rotation, Dustfall Creek. As he read, the lights brightened, not blinding, only sure. When he reached Ellison Spring Draw, they flared and drifted to the stump's flank, hovering above a scatter of fallen stones, the broken cairn. When he read the company charter that Pike's lawyer thrust forward, the pale glow thinned to almost nothing, like breath on a cold tin fading fast. Coincidence? The lawyer muttered, though he rocked back a half step. Pike's smile pinched. Pretty trick. Cal took the paper, looked to Lyle. May I read the witnesses? Lyle nodded. Cal read each name with care, the way a man says grace. The pale light steadied, then slowly traced a gentle bend in the dry bed, a path that curved away from the straight cut Pike's men had hacked. Rusk followed the line with his cane, eyes gone, glassy with memory. That bend, he breathed, voice soft. That's the old channel. I drove a stake at the stump's hip, iron-capped, marked with initials. We set the cairn to guard it. Somebody kicked it loose. Or somebody wanted it lost, May said, quiet as a needle. Lyle lowered the paper. Tomorrow, at first light, we dig where the lights hover. If we find that stake, we'll weigh it against the charter. Tonight, go home. No axes, no midnight sabotage. On my word. A murmur rolled out, some relief, some anger. Cal slipped the addendum back into its folder. The watch settled, its rhythm syncing with his own, slow and even. Behind them, the warehouse doors creaked. Someone inside dropped a grain scoop. The sound skittered like a startled animal. Cal looked once more at the hovering pail. It eased toward the stump, waited, and dimmed as if saving strength for dawn. He touched the brim of his hat to May. We'll need a careful shovel and a clean conscience. She nodded, eyes fixed on the stump. And the courage to find what we ask for. When the last lantern in town winked out, would the watchers hold their place or slip away, taking the proof with them into the dark? By 6, the feed warehouse throbbed like a hive. Wheat sacks made benches, lanterns swung from rafters, and dust turned the light to honey. Cal stood with May and Surveyor Rusk near the front, the church addendum folded in Lyle Crenshaw's hand. The deputy's tin star caught the glow and threw it back, a small moon pinned to a man who didn't much want to shine. Lyle cleared his throat. We'll keep it civil. If you can't, you'll cool off outside with me for company. A low laugh rolled, thin as the creek. Ephraim Pike stepped up with a man in a tailored coat, his lawyer, carrying a leather folio and a rolled map tied with blue ribbon. Pike's eyes scanned the room like a cattle buyer, counting, pricing, sorting, who might bend. Neighbors, Pike said, easy as Sunday pie. No one likes emergency measures. But Drought doesn't. Knock first. The company's charter allows temporary redirection to serve the greatest need. We're within the law. Show the law, May said, voice even, ledger tucked like a shield. All of it. The lawyer unfurled his map. Straight lines, tidy angles, the company ditch cut like a knife. Seepage loss is reduced by a direct channel. Equity demands efficiency. Rusk set his cane across the map and pointed past the neat ink. Creek don't run like a draftsman's daydream. It curves where the land says curve. In 1971, we wrote rotation to the native course, not a shortcut. A murmur rose. Miners from the hills stood behind ranch wives and hands in patched coats. Children pressed faces to the plank seams where lamplight leaked. Heat, breath, want. 3 ingredients of a fight. Lyle raised the addendum. This paper is witnessed and sealed. I read it by the stump, and the watchers brightened on the names. He let that hang. A modest man offering a strange truth with careful hands. Pike's smile thinned. Superstition is not statute. Statute still needs a stamp, Cal said, not loud. He nodded toward Pike's notices tacked along a beam. No county fee stamp on your emergency. The lawyer sniffed. Clerk's ill. We'll remedy formality in due course. Due course is 7 days, May said. Judge rides in on Friday. Across the room, old Mrs. Merton rose, fingers gripping her shawl. Our well's a cough, she said. If you choke Dustfall dry, we'll pack our dead roses in wagon beds and roll east. That your equity? Pike's gaze flickered, just a beat. He wasn't made of iron. He was made of want of order with his hand on the lever. No one wants hardship, he said. I'm making hard choices so you don't have to. Cal felt his pocket watch racing. He steadied it under his vest, thinking how men wrapped harm in good words and slept fine. He caught Lyle's eye. The deputy saw the same tension brewing, 2 sides of town bristling on a narrow plank over a drop. Let's try proof, not noise, Lyle said. He nodded to a clerk's table near the back, where a scale sat beside a ledger of town dues. Lawyer, put your charter there. May, your ledger. We'll read dates. We'll match signatures. Rusk, mark where the old stakes should be. Then we'll walk to the stump and watch the watchers. If they're nothing, you can laugh me out of this badge. If they're something, we follow truth where it leads. The lawyer scoffed, but stepped forward. He laid the blue ribbon charter open. Cal and May set the ledger and the addendum beside it. Rusk drew a shaky arc with a charcoal nub on butcher paper, the bend of the creek in rough, affectionate strokes. As Lyle read, a gust pressed through the turps, rattling feed labels and skirt hems. Lamps climbed and dipped on their hooks. The room went quiet enough to hear a single oat hit a board. And then everyone felt it without agreeing what it was. A coolness pooled at their boots. Children at the wall whispered. Through the crack beneath the wide door, a faint pale seeped across the floorboards, gathering along the seams, drawing a thin line that curved just like Rusk's scrawl and passed beneath the table where the papers lay. Pike's jaw clenched. Stage show, he said, but he had stepped back without meaning to. Keep reading, Rusk whispered. Lyle spoke the names again. Ellison, Grant, Merton, and the floor line brightened, not glaring, just sure. When the lawyer cut in with a clause about corporate discretion, the pale thinned, a breath fading on cold glass. When Lyle read, witnessed by Deputy Amos Corley, the line steadied. The deputy looked down at his own star, thumb rubbing the worn edge. Maybe a man chose what to be a witness to. We dig at first light, Lyle said, at the stump where the line bends. No cutting boards tonight, no breaking locks. You bring your shovels and your patience. If there's an iron-capped stake with marks to match, we'll weigh it with the judge Friday. If there's nothing, we still have a ledger and a seal. Pike leaned in, close enough for only Cal and May to hear. You won't like what dawn brings, he murmured. Men get hurt when rumors wake hungry. Cal didn't rise. Then starve the rumor, he said. Bring clean hands. They filed out under a sky full of thin stars. At the creek bank, the pale lights hovered and drifted, stopping where the old cairn lay broken. Lyle posted 2 men to watch the site, gave them coffee and orders not to chase shadows. Cal walked May to her horse. You can sleep? She asked. I can lay down and pretend, he said. She managed a small smile. That's something. He watched the watchers hold their quiet post as the town's lamps winked out one by one, and he wondered which would blink first, fear or the truth that refused to dim. Dawn came thin and brittle. Frost rimmed the cottonweed leaves, though the day would burn hot by noon. Cal, May, and Rusk stood at the stump with a small crowd, shovels biting careful bites. Lyle watched with arms folded, star dull in the weak light. Pike arrived last, boots clean, a leather folder tucked under his arm like victory already signed. They dug slow, Rusk guiding their hands. Skirt the roots. Feel for iron, he said. Cal knelt, fingers reading soil like braille. A thunk answered his palm. May caught her breath. They cleared dirt until the cap showed, blackened iron stamped with two battered letters that could only be E and S, Ellison Spring. Rusk's eyes shone wet. "Stake," Lyle said quietly. "Witnessed." Pike clapped once. "Antique," he allowed, "but we deal in current law." He flipped open his folder and produced another paper, cream and smug under the morning sun. "Abandonment of rotation rights by Mrs. May Ellison, notarized last winter for due consideration." May stiffened. "I signed nothing." Pike held the page out where folks could see neat lines and a looping signature that did look like hers if a man squinted and wanted trouble. Below, a notary seal pressed hard. Cal felt his pocket watch lurch into a gallop, ticking so fast it was almost a hum. He set his palm against it. The watchers in the creek dimmed to a pale shrug. "That's Silas Auburn's seal," May said, voice gone thin. "He courted me 3 months, then turned up on Pike's porch. I never met him alone. I refused his help with the books." Pike smiled an apology that wasn't. "Misunderstandings happen. Perhaps you signed a receipt and he attached a form. We can't pause for sentiment when cattle die." Rusk's cane trembled. I kept a notation of the addendum in my log," he said suddenly, worry tunneling through his words. "In the spring, I fell off the Arroyo footpath and scattered papers. His mouth worked. "I never refound one page. Might have been the cross-reference." A murmur ran sharp as a saw. "Doubt loves a door ajar." Lyle rubbed his jaw, then turned so all could hear him. "Until the judge comes, no man cuts boards, no man drags chains. The company keeps the headgate as is for the week he met Pike's eye. You'll log flows and keep a tally open." To me. Pike nodded as if he'd allowed the order. "Of course. Efficiency loves records." May stood like a fence post in flood. "So, we watch gardens die and call it equity?" Lyle's voice wavered. "We hold the peace. I won't have a riot." The crowd thinned into clusters, anger and fear mixing like dust and sweat. Cal walked May back toward her horse. She moved stiffly, ledger pressed to her ribs. "I never signed," she said, more to herself than him. "Not one thing I didn't read." "I believe you," Cal said. He meant it in his bones. Still, the town's need was a riptide. Belief alone didn't move judges. Paper and place did. Afternoon dragged. Cal traded his father's trail saddle for an hour with the county assessor's log, as if the leather could buy truth. The clerk in the back office shifted, lied politely about closed drawers, and Cal's watch skittered fast like a frightened quail. "Please," Cal said. The man's eyes softened. He reached under the desk and slid out a slim ledger with a missing fee stamp beside Pike's emergency filing, the time written in a different hand near midnight. Cal thanked him and left the name unspoken. Mercy had to live somewhere in a hard week. At sundown, Cal and May returned to the stump. Rusk waited, hat off, hair silver as milkweed. The watchers hovered faint as ash. Cal opened the church addendum and read aloud to the creek, voice steady, each name spoken as if calling someone home. When he said Ellison Spring Draw, the lights brightened, trembling like a held breath finally let go. When he tried to read the abandonment, the pale thinned to thread and his watch hammered in protest. May put her hand over his, and he stopped. "It'll cost me to clear this," she said, eyes on the light. "Pride, at least. Maybe more." "Truth asks for skin," Rusk murmured. "Always has." Wind slid the cottonwood leaves into a whisper. Lyle rode up slow, reined in, and studied the three of them. "I chose the week for quiet," he said. "Maybe that was cowardice. Maybe it's buys us the judge." He looked at the lights, then at Cal. "If you have proof beyond a ghost, bring it quick." Cal nodded. He would have to lay bare the clerk's help without getting the man fired. He would have to ask May to tell the town about Auburn's courting, about evenings on porches when grief made trust seem like a warm hand. He hated that, hated what it would reopen. The watchers steadied, pale and patient, as if they could wait forever while humans argued the hour away. "Tomorrow," Cal said, voice rough, "we do this clean, or we don't do it at all." But if clean meant opening May's hurt in front of men who smirked, what would it make of his promise to do no harm? By morning, the company wagons rattled down Dustfall's main street, stacked with lime and riverstone. Men in fresh gloves filed to the head gate, setting forms like they were framing a parlor, not choking a town. The sound of tamped rock carried a message. After today, nothing moves easy. Cal stood with May at the bend. Deputy Lyle posted himself between crews and ranchers, star dull under dust. No one meddles, he warned. Judge is 2 days out. We face him with facts, not broken boards. A knot of hands muttered near the cottonwoods. We could cut the pins after dark, one said. Let Flo teach 'em manners. May turned, steady as fence wire. No, she said, not in my name. Her voice was calm, but Cal caught the tremor that cost. If we win, we live with how we won. Pike surveyed his men like a foreman of hymns. Pour clean, he called. Make the creek forget it ever bent. Cal's pocket watch ticked fast, like a bird trapped under cloth. He pressed it through his vest until it slowed. Mercy over anger, he told himself. Mercy over speed. The watchers hovered low and weak, as if even light disliked quarrels without courage. He saddled up. I'm riding to the assessor again, he told May. There's a log that matters more than gossip. You already traded your father's saddle, she said. I still have my name, he answered. Sometimes that opens a door. The assessor's office smelled of paste and old ink. The young clerk behind the counter shifted when Cal came in, nervous hands smoothing a ledger that wasn't the right one. We're closed to searches, he said. Clerk's orders. Cal let silence undo the excuse, then set his palms on the counter. Open, no threat. You lent me the after-hours log yesterday, he said low. I left your name out. I'm still leaving it out. The clerk's eyes flicked to the back room, then to Cal's face. If I lose my post, my mother loses bread, he whispered. Then we won't say how the truth showed, Cal said, but truth still needs showing. The clerk swallowed, hesitated, and reached under the counter. He slid out a narrow book with curled corners. Inside, in a different hand than the day notes, a line read, Emergency diversion notice filed by E. Pike, 11:47 p.m., fee stamp deferred. A second line, squeezed in crooked, read, Fee received following morning, no, counter witness. Cal felt the watch settle, its rhythm finding his own. Thank you, he said. This stays between paper and the judge. On his way out, he almost ran into Silas Auburn, hair oiled, cuffs sharp. The notary looked Cal over with a smile that never reached his eyes. Dustfall breeds sudden friendships, Auburn said. Tell Mrs. Ellison I still pray for her. I'll tell her you remember her signature too well, Cal replied. Back at the bend, the forms rose. Pike's men poured lime. White slurry slumped into angles. Lyle's face set, the look of a good man who suspects he is buying peace with a debt that will come due. 2 days, he said to Cal. Judge at noon Friday. Then we need more than a ghost and a line in a book, Cal said. We need the stake, the addendum, the time note, and a reason your badge stands with us. Lyle glanced at the cottonwood stump, where the watchers barely glowed like dying coals. My reason is simple, he said. I swore to keep order so the judge could keep law. Sometimes that means standing in the dust and taking names until your throat's chalk. May stepped closer, ledger tucked tight. I can testify about Auburn, she said, voice sandpapered but clear. He brought paper to my porch once. I told him I'd sign nothing without reading every line. He left warm words and a pie. If he forged, it was done without me. Cal winced at the cost of that admission. In a town that loved to weigh women by whisper. We'll ring it true, he said. Not for pity, for record. Evening bled blue. The watchers stirred, faint, then steadied at the stump when Cal read the addendum again. They brightened at Ellison Spring draw, then guttered to thread when he spoke the word abandonment. His watch hammered until he stopped. Pike rode by and paused, eyes on the near-hardened wall at his gate. You can pray to fog for all I care, he said softly. By Friday noon, I'll have a sluice that laughs at your candles. Cal looked past him to the far hills, where a thin dust plume meant the judge's wagon was somewhere in the world coming closer. And if the law says your wall stands, May asked, almost a whisper. Then we keep our word to each other, Cal said, even if paper forgets it. The watchers held, small, pale, patient, as if wagering whether men would hold to or fold in the heat like wet paste under a stamp that never should have pressed. Morning came chalk-white and windless, a pause before a verdict. Cal woke to the steady tick of his watch and the softer sound of thirst, stock bawling from far corrals, a pump wheezing somewhere down the street. He saddled and rode to May's. She met him on the porch with the ledger and the church addendum wrapped in oilcloth. "I made copies by lamplight," she said, calm from the outside in. "Rusk marked them with his initials so no one can swap pages in the confusion." Cal nodded. "We'll carry the originals in my vest, copies in your duster. If they grab one, the other walks." They found Rusk at his table with a loop. Over his eye, iron filings sprinkled on the wood like pepper. He had cleaned the iron-capped stake they'd unearthed and laid a thin paper over the top, rubbing charcoal until the E and S rose bold as a brand. "Tool marks match my set from back then," he said, tapping a scarred chisel. "County uses a different cap press now. The judge will know the look." Cal studied the rubbing, the exactness. He thought of all the ways truth asked for plain tools: a chisel, a ledger, a steady voice. "Can you walk the bank?" he asked. Rusk smiled with half his mouth. "I limp it fine. I'll be there when the judge's wheels stop turning." Dustfall, meanwhile, was shearing down the middle. At Morrison's, two men argued till their voices ran out. One saying drought justifies hard math, the other saying paper can't erase promises. Women filled barrels from the town trough, dipping careful, eyes small with worry. Outside the feed warehouse, a handful of Pike's men leaned into shade, not blocking the road, just letting arms dangle in a way that told folks which way they'd prefer you to walk. Deputy Lyle Crenshaw stood in the street with a pencil behind his ear, writing down names of volunteers willing to testify. When Cal and May reached him, he exhaled slow. "Judge wired from the last post," Lyle said. "He'll be in by noon tomorrow if axles hold. I can give you time in front of him, but not the whole afternoon. Lawyers like to choke a clock." "How long?" Cal asked. Lyle looked at the watch on Cal's vest as if he could hear it too. "1 hour at the head gate," he said. "You bring every piece you say you have. Addendum, stake, assessor note. No theatrics, no shouting. If the watchers show, they show. If they don't, you argue without them." May dipped her head. "Thank you." Lyle's eyes cut to the men in the shade, then back. "I'll post 2 of mine at the gate. You'll get your hour, Hart. After that, I can't stop the company from resuming work unless the judge orders it." He lowered his voice. 4. What it's worth, I read the addendum again last night. My star felt heavier when I set it down. Pike's notary, Silas Auburn, came out of the barber with foam still at his jawline and that untroubled smile. "Big day tomorrow," he said lightly. "The law loves clarity." "Then she'll hate that filing time you pushed past midnight," Cal said. He didn't say how he knew. Mercy had a muzzle as well as a voice. Auburn's smile thinned. "Careful, Cowboy. You're building a gallant reputation. Proudtown loves nothing more than to tear one down later if it feels embarrassed." "Then let's spare it embarrassment," May said quietly. "Tell the truth now." Auburn tipped his hat and walked on, leaving the smell of bay rum and something like varnish. As afternoon bled out, Cal took the assessor's ledger page to the church and made a simple sworn statement with Reverend Pierce. No flair, just the facts of time and stamp, signed by a hand a judge would recognize. Pierce's voice was tired but warm. "Truth will ask. Something of you in return," he said. "It usually does." At dusk, a rumor chased through town that Pike would move stone all night. Lyle strode to the head gate with a lantern and 2 men and hung a notice. "Work suspended pending hearing." He set his own signature beneath it, as if to tell the dark, "Come through me if you want mischief." Cal and May walked to the stump. The watchers were already there, 2 pale lantern lights low over the stones, brightening when May read the first lines of the addendum, dimming when Cal tried the word abandonment. He shut the book on it fast. His watch had lurched to a hammering he could feel in his teeth. Rusk eased down the bank and set the iron stake upright where the cairn had been, like returning a bone to its rightful place. "Judge can weigh what the creek remembers," he said, "not just what paper claims." Then a quiet, uncanny thing happened. The 2 pale lights drew together, then separated into a string, 4, 6, then more, aligning single file. From the stump toward the new headgate, a dotted path across the dry bed. They held there, no flicker, no drift, as if they meant to draw a line a man could not step across and say he wasn't crossing something sacred. May's breath misted in the cooling air. "They're waiting," she whispered. "For us," Cal said, "and for the judge." Lyle watched from the bank, hat in his hands, eyes reflecting the thin lights. 1 hour, he repeated softly, almost to himself. Make it count. Night gathered. The lights did not waver. Cal felt the watch settle into his chest, steady now, matching a thing inside him that had finally chosen its ground. At first light, would the town follow that silent line, or pretend not to see where it led? By noon, the town lined the creek like a jury. Sun hammered the lime-white wall of Pike's new headgate. Dust lay quiet, as if holding its breath. Deputy Lyle stood between crowds and forms, hat off, notice posted, voice even. 1 hour, he said. Then the judge rules. The word. Judge's buckboard rolled in, springs squeaking. Judge Halcombe climbed down slow, eyes the color of creek clay, coat brushed but travel-worn. He took in the pale light strung single file from cottonwood stump to headgate, as if someone had dropped a chain of dim stars across the dry bed. "Mr. Crenshaw," he said, "you promised me law, not spectacle." "You'll get both kinds of light today, Your Honor," Lyle answered. "I'll hold the peace while you hold the rest." Cal stepped forward with May and Rusk. He handed the judge the church-sealed addendum, the charcoal rubbing of the iron-capped stake, and Reverend Pierce's sworn note about the assessor ledger. May set the town ledger beside them. Rusk pointed his cane at the restored cairn. "First stakes went there," he said. "We found the cap marked E and S, Ellison Spring." Pike arrived flanked by 2 foremen and Silas Auburn, the notary. The lawyer unfurled the company charter with a practiced snap. "Emergency discretion rests with the company," he announced. "We act for the many." "For the many," Pike echoed, tolerant and tired, the voice of a man shouldering burdens he'd chosen for others. Judge Halcombe read with lips pursed. He turned the addendum to the light, traced the names, tapped the wax seal. He studied the rubbing and the iron cap itself. "Old metal carries a certain honesty," he said. Then he looked to California. "What else?" Cal took a breath. "The assessor's after-hours log shows Mr. Pike filed his emergency near midnight without the fee stamp, Your Honor. The stamp was added later without a counter-witness." The judge's brow lifted a fraction. "You swore that statement?" "With Reverend Pierce," Cal said. "Plain words, no embroidery." Auburn smiled thin. "The clerk was ill." Stamp delayed, validity unchanged. May lifted her chin. "Notarized abandonment of my rotation appeared this week with my name. I never signed it. Mr. Auburn called on me last winter, brought pie and spoke kindness. I told him I'd sign nothing unread. If my hand is there, it isn't mine." Pike's smile hardened. "Mistakes happen when grief muddies memory." Rusk bristled. "Grief doesn't forge seals." The judge held up a palm. "We'll keep this in the circle of facts." He stepped down into the bed, boots scuffing powder, and faced the thin chain of pale lights. "Deputy, read the addendum." Lyle read, voice steady. At Ellison Spring Draw, the lights brightened, slid to the stump's hip, and steadied above the stake's spot. When the lawyer cut in with corporate discretion, the pale thinned to almost nothing. When Lyle spoke, witnessed by Deputy Amos Corley, the glow returned, quiet and sure. A foreman snorted and clicked his team forward to mock the show. The horses balked at the bright line, ears flat, eyes rolling white. He flicked reins again, softer this time. The animals did not budge. No one was hurt, no flare, no blast, just a refusal, as if the ground itself had learned a boundary and the beasts respected it better than men. "Accident," the lawyer said, voice higher than he meant. Judge Halcombe squinted at the headgate forms, at the wall setting hard. He looked back to the assessor note, and the late hour scrawled in a stranger's hand. "Mr. Pike," he said, "emergency discretion is not a license to leapfrogs over stamps and neighbors alike." Pike's jaw flexed. "Judge, I'm preventing ruin." "Ruin wears many coats," the judge said. "One is thirst. One is theft dressed as efficiency." Cal felt his watch tick hard, then settle as the judge turned to him. "Mr. Hart, do you claim sabotage or only misprocedure?" "Only misprocedure and a crooked paper," Cal said. "We'll take rotation restored and a fair season sluice with oversight if the court orders it." May squeezed the ledger, letting mercy stand where anger would have felt good for a minute and bad forever. "Rotation and record," she said. "We'll live by both." The judge took his time. He ran a hand down his coat front, then pointed with 2 fingers, one at the addendum, one at the iron cap. "The court recognizes original rotation and lawful channel," he said. "Deputy, open the illegal headgate. Mr. Pike, you will account for flows daily under Deputy Crenshaw's eye. We will examine the alleged abandonment in chambers. If forgery breathed on it, I will fine the mouth. Pike's face still held. Only his clerk's knuckles whitened on the map tube. Lyle nodded once, grave as church. You heard the court. Stand clear. He signaled 2 men. They knocked free the blocking boards. Tools careful, no anger in the strokes. The pale lights lifted and drifted up the line, as if inviting water to follow. Dust shifted under a new whisper, the first thread of wet finding its course after too long on memory alone. Cal closed his hand around the watch. Its cadence matched the creek's faint murmur. He looked at May, at Rusk, at Lyle holding the crowd steady by will and oath. Behind them, Pike leaned toward Auburn and spoke low words no one else could catch. The notary's smile, finally, failed. The hour was nearly done. The ruling was clear. But the week had taught Cal one last thing. Men who lose power rarely lay it down quiet. What price would mercy demand when the water finally touched stone? The first ribbon of water touched the pale dust, like a hand on a fevered brow. It darkened the stones, picked up a thread of silt, and found the old bend Rusk had drawn in charcoal and memory. Folks didn't cheer. They just breathed, the way a room breathes when a sick child finally sleeps. Judge Halcombe folded the addendum, tucked it safe, and gave Lyle a short nod. You'll oversee flows, deputy. Daily tallies posted outside the warehouse by sundown. Mr. Pike, your crews will cut a fair season sluice after this drought ends, built to the native channel, under inspection. Pike's jaw set. You'll find no theft proved. You'll find no shortcut to trust, the judge said. Law can order a gate. People decide what it means tomorrow. He climbed into his buckboard. Wheels creaked away. The hour passed. Work stopped. Dust settled. May stood by the stump, ledger pressed to her coat. She looked older and lighter at once, like a woman who had finally put down a crate she'd carried too long. Rotation at first light, she said, not to claim anything, just to speak the order out loud. Cal slipped the assessor note back into its envelope. I'll return this to the clerk, he said. No names, just the page and a thank you. You won't buy a favor? Lyle asked. I'd rather buy peace, Cal said. His watch ticked steady under his vest, calm as a porch clock. Silas Auburn lingered near the headgate with his smile trying to find itself. May walked to him. If my name lies on your paper, she said, voice soft, tear it yourself. Don't make a court do it for you. Auburn's eyes flicked toward Pike, then toward the crowd, then down. I'll cooperate, he said. It wasn't an apology, not yet. It was a door unlatched. Rusk eased the iron-capped stake deeper into its place and stacked the cairn, stones firm as knuckles. Land holds memory better than men, he murmured, still needs men to read it out loud. Through the afternoon, the trickle became a weak talk. Barrels filled slow, children smeared mud on their palms and laughed at the miracle of dirt becoming paint again. Lyle posted his first flow tally by the warehouse, pencil neat, numbers honest. Folks touched the sheet as if to feel the truth through paper. Pike came alone at dusk, no foreman flanking him, and stood on the bank a long minute. He looked at the wall his crews had poured, now cut, edges ragged where the boards gave. He looked at the pale lights, which had drifted higher with the daylight and thinned to almost nothing. I misjudged the town, he said to Cal without turning. I thought it wanted saving from itself. Cal didn't crow. Sometimes a town wants saving from shortcuts, he said. Sometimes from a drought. Sometimes from a man's pride. Pike nodded once, a motion that cost him, then walked away. He did not apologize. Men like him rarely did all at once. But he didn't send crews in the night either. That counted for something. Later, Cal and May carried the originals, the addendum, the rubbing, the sworn note, to Reverend Pierce for safekeeping. The pastor slid them into a tin box behind the hymnals. Locks aren't holy, he said, but they help good men sleep. On the way out, May stopped under the cottonwood. The watchers were gone in the open light, swallowed by ordinary day. She drew a breath that didn't scrape. You paid for this, she said to Cal, with a name at the assessor. With your quiet. I just kept us from paying with rage, he answered. Rage spends quick and buys nothing a winter can use. They walked the bank where Flo licked at new dark stones. Cal held up his watch. The tick matched the creek's small voice, true and even. He thought of the brawl that had knotted his conscience years back. Maybe mercy was not a soft thing. Maybe it was a hinge that let a gate swing the right way. At first light next morning, rotation began. Ellison Spring Draw, then Grant, then Merton, then the town trough, as the addendum said. Lyle posted a second tally with a note in his unshowy hand. We keep each other honest. Folks nodded, some surprised they liked the taste of that sentence. As the sun climbed, a thin shimmer rode the water past the stump, a brightness no stronger than a thought kept straight. May saw it. So did California. They didn't point. They let it pass. Shares first, the wind seemed to say through the leaves. Only once, only barely. Cal tipped his hat to the empty air and to the town in it, then turned toward work, the kind you do daily, without applause, the kind that keeps the ledger true and the creek remembering its bend.